Most people treat the concept of a spiritual attack as a myth from the Dark Ages, a fairy tale used to frighten the gullible, or a convenient excuse for their own personal and structural failures. They walk through life with a naive, modern arrogance, believing that because they cannot physically see a frequency, it cannot systematically dismantle their reality. They look at their bank accounts, their professional status, and their physical health, believing that their material walls are high enough to protect them from anything. But if we strip away the theatrical horror movies, the folklore, and the primitive terminology, we are forced to confront a cold, mathematical reality. What the ancient world called the evil eye, a curse, or corruption is not supernatural magic. It is a calculated, focused vector of destructive human intent. It is a high-intensity, low-frequency wave of directed malice injected into the human energy field. It is a hostile takeover of a sovereign system. The universe does not care whether you believe in these forces or not. It merely executes the laws of impact. When a high-velocity stream of focused hatred or envy strikes an unprotected, ungrounded human field, the structural integrity of that field begins to degrade, exactly like a bridge subjected to a destructive acoustic resonance. In our previous broadcasts on the Christian egregore and the volatile contracts of voodoo, we established a foundational law. The unseen world operates on absolute laws of exchange, pressure zones, and frequency filtration. Today, we are opening the most dangerous file in our architectural blueprint. We are going to analyze the exact mechanics of destructive energetic programming. We will dissect how a focused thought form can act as a localized parasite, eating away at your health, your clarity, and your financial structures from the inside out. We will explore the different tiers of these attacks, from the unconscious glare of an envious colleague to the deliberate, ritualistic architecture of a generational curse. This analysis will not offer you comfortable illusions, nor will it validate paranoia. Paranoia is an ungrounded frequency that makes your walls even thinner. We are here to understand the physics of the wound so we can build an uncompromised fortress. If you are ready to look beneath the surface of human spite with absolute, cold objectivity, take a moment right now to subscribe to this channel and leave a solid like on this video. This broadcast is a vital, non-severable component of our sequential reality management blueprint. The defensive protocols we establish today interlock directly with the frequency boundaries we mastered in our labradorite and obsidian analyses. If you have not studied those episodes, your perimeter walls are exposed. Subscribe, lock in your awareness, and let us dissect the anatomy of the attack. Let us begin our structural autopsy at the lowest yet most common tier of energetic disruption, the evil eye, historically known across ancient civilizations as the primary vector of social friction. In the mainstream world, this is laughed off as an old wives' tale. In the space of esoteric architecture, we define it as an unconscious, high-velocity puncture wound. Human beings are organic broadcasting towers. Every thought, every raw emotion, and every unmanaged spike of desire emits a physical ripple through the local energy field. When an unaligned, deeply envious person looks at your success, your beautiful lifestyle, your expanding material sovereignty, or even your physical vitality, their internal system experiences a violent spasm of lack and resentment. They see your peak, and it reminds them of their own valley. They may smile, offer a polite compliment, and shake your hand at a social gathering, but beneath that social mask, their subconscious projects a sharp, concentrated spike of raw spite directly into your field. This is not a ritual, it is a primal animal reflex. The physics of this attack are simple. It targets your peaks. It is a sudden pressure drop. If your field is unprotected and lacks a resilient frequency filter, this spike of envy punctures your outer perimeter. The immediate symptoms are not dramatic, but they are highly specific. A sudden, unexplainable drop in your vital energy right after a meeting or a family gathering. Acute headaches that strike out of nowhere across your temples. a sudden fog clouding your strategic thinking, or a bizarre cascade of minor, irritating accidents that disrupt your operational velocity. The evil eye is a localized disruption. It does not destroy your foundation overnight, but it creates a slow, steady leak in your fuel tank. It dampens your baseline frequency, causing you to make unforced errors on the battlefield of life. It is the energetic equivalent of sand being thrown into a finely tuned engine. Over time, if these puncture wounds are not cleansed and sealed, they create structural soft spots where much heavier, more predatory entities can anchor themselves. Before we move into deliberate rituals, we must look at a widespread tier of structural decay: energetic vampirism. This is not an attack born of pure hatred, but an attack born of profound systemic starvation. There is a massive percentage of the human population whose internal energy architecture is completely broken. They are ungrounded, disconnected from their own source, and incapable of generating their own vital force. To survive, their energy fields adapt to act as predatory siphons. An energy vampire operates by breaking your boundaries through emotional manipulation. They create artificial crises, permanent drama, or a toxic atmosphere of guilt and pity. The moment you engage with their drama, the moment you allow your emotional state to spike into frustration, anger, or deep sympathy, your field opens. You have just established a two-way pipeline. Once the pipeline is open, the siphon begins. They pull your high-frequency, creative, and vital energy into their own collapsed field. You will know you have been targeted when you leave an ordinary conversation feeling completely hollowed out, physically cold, or experiencing a sudden, heavy lethargy in your limbs, while the person who drained you suddenly appears radiant, energetic, and stabilized. In a professional or creative environment, a single unmanaged energy vampire can systematically lower the productivity and baseline frequency of an entire team. They act as a permanent drag on your system, pulling your focus away from manifestation and forcing you to constantly expend energy on stabilizing their artificial chaos. If your field is already thinned out by a series of evil eye punctures, a systemic drain of this caliber can leave you completely defenseless against the heavier, more deliberate attacks we are about to analyze. Now, let us step into the deeper, far more predatory architecture of the curse. Unlike the evil eye or the passive drain of a vampire, a curse is never an accident. It is a deliberate, conscious, and highly structured act of metaphysical sabotage. It is the intentional programming of your reality matrix for systematic failure. A curse occurs when a hostile entity, whether an envious rival, a bitter family member, or a hired practitioner, takes their malice, binds it to a specific destructive intent, and uses a ritualistic framework to anchor that payload directly into your lines of destiny. They are not just throwing a transient spike of energy at you. They are installing a permanent, malignant piece of code into your system. They use physical anchors, specific time cycles, and ancient systemic agreements to ensure the program runs continuously in the background of your life. The design of a curse is always specific. It targets a particular sector of your architecture, using your own hidden vulnerabilities against you. There are curses engineered exclusively for sterility, not just physical sterility, but the structural inability to birth new projects, close new deals, or manifest new wealth. You can work 18 hours a day, deploy flawless strategies, and bring elite talent into your team. But the moment you reach the finish line, the deal collapses for no rational reason. A key partner vanishes, a contract is lost in transit, or an unexpected regulation destroys the market overnight. The program simply denies the manifestation. It sets your creative output to zero. There are curses designed for isolation, which slowly alter your personal frequency so that everyone around you, your allies, your friends, even your family, begins to perceive you through a distorted lens of suspicion, irritation, and discomfort. The system systematically detaches your supporting structures, causing people to abandon you without cause until you are left standing entirely alone in the dark, stripped of your social and professional network. And the most terrifying aspect of this tier is its systemic weight. A true curse creates a sense of absolute, suffocating despair. It feels as though the very gravity of your reality has turned against you. Every door that was once open slams shut, every asset becomes a liability, and no matter how hard you struggle, you feel like a man drowning in heavy, cold oil. You begin to realize that you are not fighting bad luck. You are fighting an active, intelligent program designed to dismantle your existence. But there is a tier that runs even deeper than a personal curse, an architecture that most people completely ignore until it is too late. Generational corruption, often referred to as an ancestral curse. This is not an attack launched against you because of something you did, your current wealth, or your personal choices. This is a legacy debt. It is a pre-existing systemic malfunction built into the very bloodline you inherited. Think of your ancestral line as a massive stream of data and vital energy flowing down through time. If an ancestor executed a catastrophic contract, committed a massive violation of systemic laws, or was targeted by a high-tier ritual curse that was never cleared, that dark payload becomes embedded in the family line's architecture. It modifies the genetic and energetic blueprint passed down to future generations. When you are born into a line with generational corruption, you inherit a compromised foundation. You enter the reality matrix with a permanent structural debt already on your ledger. This type of corruption does not manifest as a sudden shock. Instead, it manifests as a repeating, historical pattern of tragedy that mirrors itself across generations. Look closely at your family history. If you see that every firstborn son across 3 generations died before the age of 40, if you notice that every woman in your line experienced the exact same pattern of violent divorce and isolation, or if every business built by your father, grandfather, and yourself collapsed into identical bankruptcies just as it reached peak prosperity, you are looking at generational corruption. It is an automated time trigger built into your lineage. It waits for you to reach a certain age, a certain wealth threshold, or a certain level of happiness, and then it activates the self-destruct sequence. It is a profound, systemic trap that requires a massive expenditure of vital force and specific extraction protocols to sever. Let us look at a concrete, real-world case study of structural sabotage from my private practice. A 42-year-old entrepreneur had built a highly profitable logistics and distribution network spanning across several key international hubs. He was a man of immense vitality, sharp intelligence, and unyielding discipline. For a decade, everything he touched turned into gold. His expansion was unstoppable, and he operated with the absolute confidence of a sovereign master of his destiny. Then, within the span of a single month, his reality began to curdle and rot. It started with a sudden, uncharacteristic wave of severe, chronic fatigue that completely baffled his physicians. His medical metrics, blood panels, and neurological scans were flawless, yet he could barely drag himself out of bed. Next, his logistics network experienced an unprecedented string of catastrophic failures. High-value cargo shipments were delayed or seized by bizarre, non-statistical customs accidents. Long-term corporate clients broke their contracts without warning, unable to explain their own decisions. His capital reserves began to evaporate at an alarming speed. The feeling of hopelessness was paralyzing. He felt an ominous, heavy pressure in his chest every time he sat at his executive desk. He began to experience terrifying, hyper-realistic nightmares of being buried alive or trapped in an iron cage, waking up drenched in cold sweat at exactly 3 in the morning, night after night. He was a rational, hard-headed businessman, but he realized he was fighting an invisible executioner. When he brought his case to me, we executed a deep, multi-layered strategic audit of his personal field and his physical structures. The diagnosis was unmistakable: a deliberate, professional tier curse. intertwined with an unhealed ancestral debt, had been anchored into his reality matrix. A bitter, bankrupt former business partner had sought out a high-level ritual practitioner to systematically poison the entrepreneur's lines of fate. They had utilized a heavy, low-frequency earth burial ritual to lock his vitality and his wealth inside an energetic tomb, exploiting a historical crack in his family line's protective field. The resolution required a brutal, systematic counter-protocol. We didn't use cheap incense, light decorative candles, or say empty prayers. We executed a precise, multi-stage energetic extraction. We identified the physical anchors of the attack, deployed high-intensity grounding elements to absorb the low-frequency payload, and used advanced cleansing protocols to sever the parasitic threads. The extraction was agonizing. The entrepreneur experienced severe physical purging, violent shaking, and an intense fever for 24 hours as the dark code was ripped out of his nervous system. But within 48 hours of completing the protocol, the heavy pressure on his chest vanished. His sleep returned to absolute stillness. Within 3 months, his logistics network stabilized. Old clients returned with lucrative new offers, and his vital force was fully restored. He survived, but his architecture was permanently altered. He learned the hard way that a fortress without energetic defenses is just an open invitation for predators. This case study exposes the absolute vulnerability of the ungrounded soul. You cannot navigate a world fueled by human envy, greed, and malice without an established defensive infrastructure. Paranoia is your enemy, but naive ignorance is your executioner. If you do not actively manage your perimeter, the environment will manage it for you, usually to your detriment. Here is the architect's strict protocol for defense, protection, and daily energy hygiene. First, stop broadcasting your victories before they are fully materialized. Human envy triggers the evil eye instantly. When you rush to social media or your social circles to brag about a deal that isn't signed, a relationship that isn't anchored, or a wealth threshold you haven't secured, you are inviting 1,000 unconscious spikes of spite into your field. Silence is your primary defensive perimeter. Build in the shadows until your structure is too massive to be tipped over by a glare. Let the world see your results, never your process. Second, monitor your system metrics daily with absolute detachment. If you experience a sudden, unexplainable drop in your physical energy that does not correspond to your diet, workload, or rest, if you notice a sudden pattern of identical, irrational obstacles blocking your daily execution, or if you begin waking up sweating between 3 and 4 in the morning with a distinct sense of dread, do not ignore the data. Your system is warning you of a pressure change in your environment. Run an immediate diagnostic scan on your surroundings. Third, deploy high-integrity frequency filters at your physical boundaries. As we broke down in our Labradorite broadcast, you must learn to coat your outer field in a dense reflective shield that deflects low-frequency malice back to its source. Utilize raw, unpolished minerals like black tourmaline or deep obsidian at the entry points of your home or office to act as passive grounding points that absorb external spite before it reaches your nervous system. Cleanse your personal field regularly with cold running water, deep abdominal breath work, and absolute mental discipline. Never allow someone else's chaotic emotional baggage to dictate your internal frequency. There is deep drama in the human condition, and there is immense spite woven into the fabric of our society. The unseen arrows of envy, systematic drain, and deliberate malice are real, and they are flying through the air of our offices, our cities, and our networks every single day. The despair of a true attack can make you feel as though you are completely helpless against the dark currents of reality, dragging you down into a state of total exhaustion. But look at me clearly. A parasite cannot feed on a host unless there is a matching frequency of weakness inside. An energetic attack cannot dismantle your life unless your fortress is already ungrounded, fragmented, and full of cracks. True sovereignty does not come from living in permanent fear of curses, nor does it come from hiding in a room lined with amulets. It comes from building a system so clean, so powerful, and so perfectly aligned with the higher laws of creation that any weapon formed against you simply shatters upon impact against your shield. In our upcoming broadcasts, we will continue to strip the veil off the hidden world, analyzing the exact mechanics of entity attachment and the deep extraction of ancestral trauma. We will give you the tools to rebuild your authority from the ground up. Take a moment right now to share this video with a sovereign thinker who is ready to secure their perimeter. Post this link in your private channels, drop your honest observations and family history patterns in the comments below, and ensure your subscription to @esoteric.architect is fully locked into the grid. Keep your focus sharp, build your walls thick, and I will see you in our next architectural breakdown.